when implementing automation? Is it important to make sure they only have a 6-foot cord in case Bumblebee goes from an Autobot to a Decepticon, turns on you, and ultimately tries to chase you?
Well, mine's bolted to the ground.
Okay.
Anchored in
another important safety tip. Yep.
I mean, I saw the movie Transformers. They're coming on a dang vending machine. So that is,
Someone has to ask the tough questions, guys.
Yeah. Hard-hitting journalism.
Welcome back to the Lights Out podcast, where we talk with manufacturing leaders who are transforming their shops with automation and data and process optimization. Today, we have a very special guest, Johnny Goode, president of MSP Manufacturing in Bloomington, Indiana. MSP specializes in precision aerospace components and has been making big moves towards lights out automation, process optimization, and just investing in both kind of automated hardware, but also software automation technologies. And so I'm joined also by my co-hosts, Nick Goellner and Nekich. Johnny, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you.
So I just got to start with this. So how often have someone said, like, "Oh, Johnny, be good" in your life?
I think if you listen to most of the podcasts I've been on, that's usually the first question.
I just wanted to be the one mistake.
Anyone ever done the song as the intro music when you come on? Or
maybe we should cut and start with that one. But no, it doesn't start with a B. I'm actually the third too. But so my running joke is, you'd think by the third they would have figured it out by now. But
that's awesome, man. We always start with, when we have a cool new guest with an interesting story, and just say, hey, tell us your origin story. Go back as far as you want and kind of tell us how you got into the metalworking nation. And then, ultimately we'll get into where you're at in your lights out journey. But these guys were giving me some of the Cliff's notes on you, and I'm like, all right, let's have them tell that story and kind of bring them up into present day.
All right. Okay. I'll kind of just start kind of college era. So I graduated high school in San Diego at Poway High School. Then went to attend Indiana University, so in Bloomington. In between my freshman year, I applied for what they called a cadet part-time officer program. So although I was going to undergrad for business, always had an interest in the military and law enforcement. So I was a cadet for 1 year, went through the police academy in between my sophomore and junior year. So became a full certified police officer in the state of Indiana in 2011. Worked part-time as a police officer while finishing my undergrad. So usually worked nights and weekend nights. Had an event that so I got sworn in before I turned 21. And on the night of my 21st birthday, which my birthday is the day before Halloween. So they had Avicii was here. I really wanted to go to that. Couldn't get anyone to cover my shift. And we had a big shooting. So a guy took a gun out at a frat party, started trying to engage people. And then I was the one that ultimately arrested him and took him down. So had my name in a bunch of papers that day. And so my next night when I went out for my birthday, my friends were bragging about me, and I had multiple free drinks on top of, just doing funny first.
That's amazing.
And then
engagement means something a little different in the podcast world.
Yeah,
we actually we like those.
Yeah, so does tactical advice and things of that nature. It'll stem a different thought process in my head. But after I graduated, I got hired full time there. Worked there for a couple of years, and then I was kind of just getting bored working patrol. So, and I really had a lot of interest in SWAT. Was always been a passion of mine. Wasn't really any opening, so I enlisted in the Army National Guard in early 2017. We're not to 2027 yet. And then I had 5 months before I was due to ship out to basic training at Fort Benning. And I made opening for SWAT came. I made the team, and right before I left. So, and then I also made detective either right before I left or right when I got back. So I went to basic training or I guess it's called OSET, one station unit training. So you do your training and infantry school all in one. Finished that, and then came back and was working undercover narcotics as well as SWAT. So we do hits, I did buys, and then developed in the National Guard. made sergeant really quickly and then moved over to a recon unit. So I did recon, undercover narcotics, and SWAT all at the same time up until about 2020. I was also in a federal process, and COVID kind of really made things different. And so I saw, just a lot of buddies leaving that. Police world in 2020 was a little bit different, a lot of political things happening. My first son was also on his way. And so I decided to kind of withdraw from that. On paper, I'm still a certified police officer. I still instruct firearms for the police academy, but I started working part-time at MSP while I was still closing out cases and just really fell in love with manufacturing. And so in November, went full-time there and made vice president in 2021, president 2023, and then now I'm a co-owner and president. So that kind of brings us here. And then it is a family-owned company. So the reason I probably accelerated that is because my dad has owned it since 2002. So I'm not,
Cool.
That's awesome where I just go right from undercover into vice president that quickly. But I had some good connections in law enforcement where guys that started gun companies and needed a manufacturer. And during COVID, when, a lot of our aviation business went away, it was able to kind of leverage those relationships, dive in deeper with defense and move forward on that.
So the whole time you're talking, I'm thinking like if I was going to fabricate if I wasn't happily married to my first girlfriend that I've had since I was 16 and I was making a Tinder profile,
Yeah.
it would be like, yeah, I was in the SWAT, I made the team, it was great. And then like right after that, I became the president of this other company. And like I was a sergeant, I used to do like hits and fake drug deals and I could bench 600 pounds.
We covered that before you got here, actually.
Did they?
I was the smallest dude on the team. It was kind of stunk because like our PT test, like everybody's carrying the same weight. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I think your story is really amazing and super unique in the manufacturing space. I've been in the industry a while, and I have never met anyone with your background. So
yeah, it is really cool.
Really cool.
I've met a ton of veterans in kind of our industry, but not a lot of cops going in. I've got one other buddy that's a former cop, but it's like the skill set we learn to be, especially guys that are on SWAT. That's where like I learned innovation because you have problems and you're like, you have to solve it, whether you have the resource or not. And so the guys I was around, like some of the most intelligent people, and you just wouldn't think of them being in that role. But so if you're a manufacturer and you got cops applying, like take them. Good cops will be so innovative because usually you have a mission, you have to be successful. So like there's no excuses, you're a sense of resiliency. So all my past experiences lined me up great for here. And then from a marketing standpoint, it's really kind of a differentiator. What differentiates you from a lot of machine shops? I just start telling the story and people are like, okay, let's hear more. And so you build that relationship and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a super unique story.
Yeah.
So I would like you answer the question I always ask: how does your either military experience or whenever it's some sort of interesting background, like how does that impact your psychology of leadership at a machine shop? And I think you just hit it. You have limited resources and you got to get a lot out of it.
I got to see a lot of really bad and good examples of leadership, sometimes more bad. And just I'd always told myself, like, if I'm ever in a position where I can influence it and not do those things, I will. And it's been very helpful. And I think the fact that I spent, even now that I've been here for 5 years, kind of sitting up in this office, I spent more of my time on the ground floor, kind of, if it was a manufacturing company, I would have been one of the lower level employees. So I can understand that perspective. And I think that's what gave me trust from the other guys. And, and also my stress management. It's some things that may seem crucial in manufacturing, and I'm not going to take a lot of things lightly, but I saw some really rough things, and now I'm like, okay, so, and the guys have no problem giving me bad news after I told them, like, oh yeah, I had to interview someone for this, and so nothing you're going to tell me is worse than a couple of those situations. So that, and just treating people as people, like I learned that on the street is regardless, you're the janitor, CEO, people care about how you talk to them. And I learned on the street, like sometimes people, when they have nothing, all they have is their dignity. And if you take that away, that's where you'll see people fight, get aggressive. But if you're able to just talk to people as people and never think you're above them, it definitely makes a way better culture, and it helps with our innovation.
That's amazing. Do you think any of obviously, from what I understand, being a member of a SWAT team, there's a lot of strategy and tactics that go into a lot of those operations. Has any of that, you think, rolled over into how you manage and run a business?
Absolutely. My former team commander, I'll give him a shout out, Mick Williams. That guy had the best one-liners that I've used in some other presses, but he always told me, like, don't confuse good luck with good tactics. So that's my defense when everybody's like, oh, this is the way we've always done it. And I'll say, don't confuse good luck with good tactics. So people get so comfortable. And I think I've just been so used to being uncomfortable my life. So that's why I really just try to keep pushing things forward, even if things are going well. And we always had the mindset is, we're working out a ton too. We're trying to be the best asset we can because we don't know what threat we're going to come against one day. And that's kind of the way I push into here too, is we got to keep getting better. Our competition is doing this, is probably getting better. Although, I'm not worried about a direct gunfight with my competition. There's a lot of manufacturing, but there's still some competition in the marketplace. I think it is getting to the point now where there's so much work, there's a lot more collaboration occurring, which is really cool too.
So you are like me, you are an SOB, a son of boss.
Yes.
And we say that a lot on the Making Chips Network. And so you're talking about the way we've always done it, you come in and in pretty quick order, make it to a president level position at your father's company. Did he start MSP? Was it?
No, so it was founded in 1943. He purchased it in 2002. So we're kind of the third family to run it.
Yeah. Did you find there to be some kind of tension between how you would want to do things and how your dad had been doing it? Or was it just really easy?
Not so much with my dad. I mean, so we've been working together for over 5 years. We never had a big disagreement or even raised our voice. It's impressive because my dad's done business with his dad also and others, and they do have that. I did have some, I would say, more conflict with the upper management because they were essentially the ones running the company. My dad had this and other companies, so he didn't give it the attention I have been able to give it because this is my primary job. And that's where the reluctancy to change is. And I think within the first 5 or 6 months I was here, I decided to change our ERP system. So you've got a young kid. I mean, I was 29, 30 around that time, and telling the whole company the software's hot garbage. We need a better ERP system. And then he's going to implement it all by himself, which that was not the smart move, but it worked. It's great now.
Yeah.
So I got no buy-in, just pretty much forced it down their throats, which I would not recommend doing.
Yeah, you want to go after somebody's dignity.
I'm amazed this is the first time you and Nick have met.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to go after somebody's dignity, take their ERP system away.
Yeah, man. So I made some mistakes and probably could have done things a lot better, but I think it would have changed how I got to where I'm at now, and now our culture and my relationship with those same people that I had conflict with now are great. So it's not like I came in here and started terminating people left and right, and our retention is amazing. So I'm always having the same people. It's not like we have turnover, and the struggles I heard. And I have a business degree, but there's one thing between having education and experience. And experience, I think, with education is great. But if you think just because you went to school, you can do everything, you might be surprised on what you encounter.
Yeah, this is one of those industries these guys with their degrees from the universities, they don't know how to cut apart. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. There's also some value in getting a degree. I had to do it just to do it. I just feel like I needed one, and I did learn some stuff in school, don't get me wrong, but I got a degree just to get a bachelor's degree and then get back into work. Because my opinion on university might not match everybody else's, but I think most of what you want to learn in this industry, you learn quicker when you just find the right resources and dig in and start running a company. But I I had opportunity to do that most people don't get because it was my family's business, so.
Yeah, my dad, I think, wanted to hand me the keys right when I finished business school. And I think it would have been terrible for the company, really. I think what I liked about law enforcement, I used my own name. I, cut my teeth. It's great for my employees now because every time they get pulled over and they're wearing an MSP shirt, they get out of it. So,
That's so good.
I'm still pretty close with
You
all
put
of my
that in the
buddies.
benefits package when you
I
hire
haven't, but
people?
it happened to 3 employees in 1 week. And, another advantage I had is we had a piece of equipment get delivered a day early, and the truck driver's like, "I'm just leaving it in the parking lot." I'm like, "No, like the riggers aren't coming till the next day." So now all my buddies are like the lieutenants. And so I texted one, I was like, "Hey, I'm in a pinch. Can you help me out?" He's like, "Oh, I'll put a car over there all night. No one's going to touch that machine." So
So good.
that's just cool.
Yeah.
I mean, those connections are just uh, common suffering
Priceless.
together is a great bonding experience. But as you mentioned, college, I was like, adversity is an amazing teacher. So I
Mhm.
came in the middle of COVID, and trying to keep a company from going out of business is way different than a company growing. I love the growing part, so much more fun. But my dad thinks that like I learned more in a couple years than what people would learn in an MBA program, just because managing cash
Baptism
flow
by
when your
fire.
revenue is gone is pretty difficult, and you have to be innovative. You have to, and then I got real into grant writing, and that really helped us. There's a lot of programs out there, and unfortunately, there aren't a ton of websites where it's like these are all the grants you qualify. But if you have a network that's tied in with all of those, they are that person. That's what's been helpful.
Yeah, seasons of leadership and just in life. And I remember we had like a totally different philosophy when it was COVID time. It was survival mode. It was cut all the fat out of the business. Try to cut people last. If you could figure that out, cut the people last and like figure out everything else that you can cut out of it. But it was really like bunker in, conserve and get everything you can out of what you have, and then cross your fingers and figure out what the PPP and all the government stuff is going to do for you to kind of keep you rolling. But you check that against like what we're doing today, and it's very much growth mode.
Oh
And so
yeah.
those seasons are totally different. I think the one thing that's consistent regardless of the season is that like what we're trying to preach on Lights Out is always relevant and
Oh
always
yeah.
important. And maybe even more so in that time of a crisis.
I was gonna say COVID for us was like the best thing at the end of it. Now I can say that, not during. But the best thing that could have ever happened to MSP. It got us to diversify largely. So before COVID, we were like 70% tied to either Boeing or one of Boeing's suppliers. So Boeing shuts down, 70% of our business dips. I think we're now below 30%. So that's huge. For years, like 10 years, they do SWAT analysis, biggest threat, too much business tied to Boeing. So it's really hard to make those changes when everything's going well. And you're like, yeah, we know it's an issue, but why change it? Because we're still getting revenue. So COVID got us like diversify, make yourself more resilient if something like this ever happens again.
They're like, Johnny, we're going to do a SWOT analysis tomorrow. You come in a bulletproof
So
vest.
people
No.
put my background, and they spelt it like that SWOT. And I was like, no, it's special weapons and tactics. It's an A.
Yeah.
Nick, I think that's a great segue. Johnny, thank you. So gracious to share, kind of your journey from law enforcement into manufacturing. And now, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear MSP's journey from, or journey into automated manufacturing. Obviously, the Lights Out podcast, we're here to talk about some of the advanced manufacturing you guys have done, along with learning about you and your company. So yeah, let's talk about the second part of your journey, getting into automation.
Yes. So I think 2 things happened that really started kickstarting our automation. So the biggest one is, prior to 2020, 2019 was MSP's best year. I was not on the radar. My dad's, getting older, and he's starting, not wanting to make these big investments because the thought of selling the company is on the horizon. So when I came in, and I had been here more than a year, and pretty much was like, I'm down. I want to run. I want to be here. I want to take MSP to the 100-year mark. We're at 83 years now, so I got 17 more to go. That really flipped the initiative to where now we're willing to make investments. We're willing to get better. So that is a huge component. And then I had a consultant. His name's Peter Bowman from Flying S, and
I
he's been
love Peter.
Peter is one of the best people I know.
Peter is one of my favorite people on earth. Shout out to Peter Bowman.
Yes,
You're the
I just
man.
saw him last week, and so he, I'm new to the company. I don't really know about automation at this point. So this is the this is end of 21, early 2022. My first 2 years, I'm like just trying to keep the company alive. But he came in as a consultant. His dad had done previous CNC training, so we wanted to upskill our workforce. And he starts talking about automation, 5-axis. We had no 5-axis before 2022. And then he starts running through these things. I'm seeing the dollar amounts. I'm like, it's going to be a harder one to pitch. And then he runs a different ROI calculator. And he goes, this is the cost of, the machine, your ROI. This is the cost of not doing it. And that kind of flipped a switch in my head. And the way I pitch things, it's like, okay, yes, you're, having to finance something. But if you keep doing the status quo, this is how much it's actually costing the company. So in 2022, we bought a used 750, had that installed. I used what's called the Indiana Manufacturer Readiness Grant. So they funded half of our 5-axis with a pallet pool. And he was the one we were getting into, firearm manufacturing, which has good quantities. So we now needed manufacturing. And then he also showed us things that they're doing at Flying S, high mix, low volumes, but it's still automated because, the mindset of our company at the time was you can and I'm sure a lot of people still have this, where it's like, oh, you can only automate large volumes. And that's what kind of kickstarted also. It's like, now let's start standardizing the work holdings or the pallets. So it's like you can put multiple everything's repeatable. So we got our UMC.
He's like speaking our language right now.
I was going to offer him a job actually at the end of the podcast. So
yeah. So you got
your next career move is sales, my friend. No,
it's funny because you're not the first person to tell me that. I like the networking side, getting to know people. I'm a terrible sales person at the end of the day, though. But
everyone who I think is great says they're a terrible salesperson.
That's why it must be you, Maximus.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
But so we got the pallet pool in. It was probably my slowest implementation of a capital purchase, just because one, we'd only been using 5-axis parts. Now that program had previous experience with 5-axis, so he got up and running a little bit better. But I had like someone that was in charge of purchasing and operations, like, oh, I don't want to spend the money on work holdings. And I was like, I just dropped all this money on a machine, and you're gonna withhold it because of dang work holdings or base plates. That's what I'm a big fan of, base plates. So you can just put the same work holdings in and out. You got something running in quality, I'll throw another one in there, get it ready, and you just keep that spindle turning. It took us a while to get to that. After we got that down, we bought, we waited a year, kind of, we put a ton of money in tooling, work holding, getting that up and running. And within a year now it's running, 24/5. We work 4/10, so usually don't have people coming in here on the weekends to run it. But now we have a Nakamura lathe with a 12-foot bar feeder that just is singing. So that thing's running well. And then automation, you get into production, I think is harder than one-offs because it'll highlight, not a perfect program. So my programmers are so much better now where they set up most jobs for production or repeatability. And then just a couple months, or this year, we got a big hexagon CMM. I had my employees at the hexagon school while it was being started. So, the guy finished the setup Friday afternoon, Monday morning, it's already inspecting parts. And I have the same base plates on my CMM, so I can take the vices from the pallet, put it on the CMM, inspect that part without having to, and if they need to make adjustments, it's already, repeatable within 1 or 2 tenths. I think we're using 5-axis work holdings. And then, we got a Haas 750 with a robotic pallet loader. Same thing. Friday, finished implementation. Monday, it's printing, it's making parts, and it's already set up to run. So it uses the same control panel as the pallet pool, which is nice. And so that was just a no-brainer. And then I got to the point where I was coming in on weekends loading the pallet pool. And like I said, like my background is not in manufacturing. The fact that I can load a pallet pool shows you how easy it is. And then our first step actually at automation was just a little bit before the pallet pool. I totally forgot about this part, but we bought a aftermarket rotary, but it had 4 heads. So we were doing AR-15 lowers. So it would do 4 at a time. And so, it's a long cycle time, 5 hours, but we would set it up before we left. So we get a couple hours of unwrap or lights out on that. There was a point where the motor went out, and so we had used like a Haas motor in this aftermarket to like integrate it. So nobody wanted to help us. They're just pointing the finger at the other way. And we spent a decent amount of money. And so my dad was not happy that it wasn't running. So I watched probably like 10 to 20 hours of YouTube videos on rotaries and stuff. So I took it apart, got a new one, put it all back together, calibrated it, got it on the machine. Guys helped me with that part, the wiring. And then watched videos on Haas controllers, got it spinning and repeatable, and it's been working well since then. But that's what I think got me a little bit of street cred on my floor, is like wow, this guy's getting his hands dirty and doing something I don't even know how to do.
Yeah.
Or they just may not have had the time. I don't want to discredit my team. But I think that's what gave him that, like, oh, he's willing to get his hands dirty too. And in my first year, I did try to spend more time working either in the machine shop or assembly or deburring, just to learn the processes. And that's where a lot of innovation and standardization has come from, because, I would see people walking around like, what are you guys looking for? And they're like, Allen wrenches, so-and-so always. And I was like, Allen wrenches? I was like, I had my brother, who also works here. He's a lot younger than me. I was like, go to Harbor Freight, get like 20 sets of Allen wrenches. I want every station to have 2 or 3. But that's an easy fix, because just the time looking for tools, it's hard to capture without you seeing it.
Yep.
We used to have this huge banner at our shop at Hennig, and it was in camouflage, and it said no hunting allowed.
Yeah.
And the point was like, have a 5S workstation where you know exactly where your tools are supposed to be. Because my dad would do the same thing. He'd walk around and see someone like wandering around, like, and then the guy who was my mentor, Manuel, everyone called him Bandito, because like if you were missing a tool, you could find it.
Yeah, you're a little bandit.
But yeah, it's so funny because that resonates with me so much. When you actually like observe, which you're able to do in leadership positions, just kind of watch how things are happening, you realize how much time is lost just looking for stuff.
I cannot tell you how insanely cool it is, to me at least, that your automation journey started with getting into modular work holding, seeing the benefit of the standards, implementing that as part of like your in-process and first article inspection. That is something that we've been preaching, and to hear that, to hear from a business owner that that's how the process worked for you, and that, and that you had like quantifiable results. It just, I can't express in words the joy that brings me. So thank you for sharing that part of your journey with us. That's huge.
Eric, we could see you light up as he was saying that.
Johnny, he feels this joy because he was the head of sales for Fifth Axis.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
if you knew that about him. Yeah, he, another California company.
I think I've met you before then.
Yeah.
Have you?
Probably.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah. And the Peter connection and knowing his dad. I would say that's an important, and usually we talk at the end, but I don't want this point to go kind of unheard and at least logged by our listeners, that journey began with some pretty economical application of, modular work holding, especially now more than ever, is readily available to just about everybody.
Oh, yeah. So it's kind of funny too. Like our journey into automation as an automation provider started with work holding. So we would, you were talking about like loving base plates and grids and like just drop it in and it's exactly where it should be. That's what AmRock is. We made tombstones and grid plates. That's our core product. And then from there, it's like, well, what are you putting on top of that?
And you talk about, we talked about 5S. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the company called Henry Holsters. They're down the street from us. That is the most 5S. Andrew Henry is like the 5S wizard. I went into and like the little things he was getting out. So like he had put the edge of a broom out of his shipping department because people were, taking that seal off in their shipping and get stuck to their hand. And they're like, so they put a broom, it just comes right off. And everything in there, every station is the exact same, has everything they need, all to the point where it won't be drill bits. It'll be 3 drills that have it so they don't have to change out drill bits. And he is so intelligent. And so seeing him is what him and Peter both kickstarted the kind of that thought process in my head. And because I didn't know anything about it. I've learned everything from manufacturing by either my staff or a lot of those guys.
It comes down to the blocking and tackling. We talked a few times on either lights out or making chips about how everybody does 3S, but they forget to standardize and sustain. And then like even how you lead your company into automation requires standardization that you can sustain before you automate a process.
Yeah.
So it's not just about like cleaning up your work area. It's about like the tooling you select, the work holding you select, the process that you create. Because once you have that sorted out, it's a 5S clean process that you can rely on. Now you can apply automation and have it run without somebody watching it.
Oh, absolutely.
I spent some time this week. First, thank you for sharing your journey into automation. That's so amazing to hear. I'll try to like dial back my fangirlism right now and get back on track for the podcast. But I spent some time this week on the MSP website. And one thing that really jumped out to me were your corporate values. And not only, they read strong, absolutely in alignment with everything there, but they also speak to kind of this mission that you've been on to automate. You care to talk about those corporate values at all and how they've really transcended into like your everyday nuts and bolts of running that company?
Yeah. So couldn't agree with you more on that, but they've also been things I've pulled from my like just journey as a person. So a lot of those, I'll read them so people know what we're talking about. It's integrity, efficiency, resilience, precision, respect, and innovation. So integrity and resilience and respect, huge in the military. Also in law enforcement, innovation, efficiency, and precision is a lot in SWAT, and or sniper unit. Precision is kind of a key part. So those ones were always very important. And my opinion is, if as a owner and a president, if you're not willing to live your personal life with those same set core values, then it doesn't matter if it's on a website. It's one thing to put words; it's another one to live what you're preaching. So that's why I didn't want anything on there that was going to be not as me an individual too. But back to the kind of main point of, the automation, it's all of those are so crucial. So the one people might not be as keen on is respect, but it's like, if you don't have respect among your staff, your team, your managers and stuff, like you get into that personal drama and that just adds so much more complexity to something simple. If everyone's on the same page, has mutual respect, I'm never talking down to people, so no one else should. That's the biggest reason I've terminated people. Is if you're toxic to my employees, sorry, you got no place. But that keeps all the negativity out, because manufacturing's hard as it is. Why bring in that other stuff? And then the resiliency, that's what's carried me throughout my life, because I tried out for the SWAT team 2 or 3 times, didn't make it the first time, kept pushing, kept getting stronger. And that's what I tell my staff is like, hey, there's going to be days that are easier, there's going to be days that are hard, but we as a team, we're going to keep pushing through barriers. We're not going to look at obstacles. They may be a speed bump, they're not a barrier. We will continue to push through as a team. And then, efficiency, innovation, that's what you want. You want to drive down the cost. You want to either, increase your bottom line or decrease your cost to the customers. If you can do both, that's great. And precision in production is so much harder than if you're doing a 1 or 2 off, because if you don't have a precise process, you got to kick that button on and let my robot's called Bumblebee because it's yellow and my 4-year-old loves Transformers. So we go let Bumblebee loose. You'll come back to a ton of bad parts if you're not precise in what you set up. Mm-hmm. And then in 2, like with pallet pool, it's like we inspect every single station every time the first run, because that's where, when we started, they'd run the first pallet, run it through, and they're like, all right, good to go. But, there's very slight differences that are on different pallets. So we've gotten a lot better at that. And integrity. I don't want people cutting corners, do the right thing. Like that is just, I think, a necessity in business. And it falls into why we get business is because I think being a good person and being a good business is like the best sales strategy ever. Now, if you can maximize on-time delivery, customer satisfaction, quality, I think your part, it becomes your marketing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not to be a lean nerd and bring everything back to 5S, but even your core values, like documenting them is that, standardization, like these are the values that define us. And then sustaining the last is like living them out every single day and using them in conversation and hiring by them and firing by them and making all your decisions according to them. And I think, a lot of companies like put stuff up on the wall, like cool adjectives, and that's all they are,
Yeah, lip
And then,
service, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see that you've lived that out.
I've seen the lip service. I've been on the bad end of the lip service side. That's why why these are so important to me, is because, they come out with mission statements in the Army and in law enforcement. And I'm like, well, I see the lieutenants are doing the complete opposite or, different. That's not a specific, just in a kind of general example, but it just kills the morale of the people that are told they have to do it, but their upper management is not. So that's why it was really important to me.
Awesome. David?
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, just a quick question for folks who are like looking to make a transition into adopting technology, but they maybe are getting a bit of pushback from their team. Would you advise them that kind of starting with these core values is kind of fundamental to managing that change? And has that been the case for you then?
Yeah, I think the core values, as well as just a good culture, just really sets a great foundation to making this an easier process. Because, when you're automating, it's not something that happens overnight. There are some obstacles that occur, but if you have a team that's willing to come together and work together to solve it, because you'll go to some companies and see like a cobot sitting in the corner because they hit an obstacle. They didn't have a good culture. They're like, this is too hard. I'm just going to throw it in the corner. And they're not the ones that paid money. So, I'm not super, especially bigger companies where, they have better financial backing and they can just set a $100,000 robot in the corner and not worry about it. But if you don't have that resiliency to just keep, working hard, you all have the same vision at the end. Yeah, I would agree that core values and just having a good culture makes the whole thing a lot easier, because if everybody's willing to work together to solve the problem, it's way better because you get a couple people that, and have buy-in too. If you can kind of get the frontline people to bring you ideas, and then you're implementing something that was their idea rather than just forcing things down people's throat, which I learned the hard way with a ERP system.
Yeah, totally. So maybe like another good question to piggyback on that, once you have buy-in from your team, you're starting to implement these technologies and you're working through the learning curve, which you talked about. How have you, Johnny, with your team and at MSP, how have you measured success with these initiatives of bringing in automation? Are there certain kind of metrics that you're targeting and measuring your progress against? What does success look like for you guys?
So a varied amount. On-time delivery was a big metric for us. And we use a 12-month rolling average for on-time delivery. And then quality was another one. And then we do parts produced, so revenue and units. Now that can get skewed because sometimes you get like 100,000 of small parts, and then you have like one big part that takes 20 hours to machine. So that's why I kind of pair it with revenue. Give it a little bit more moderation, but
yeah, and you could do on-time delivery with dollars too,
and spindle utilization.
I like how you don't just go by units or dollars. You kind of like consider both. I think that's solid.
Yeah, because sometimes, and I used to do like number of shipments a month, but I found out like, there'd be months we were way lower, but our revenue is higher because we were shipping bigger, more expensive things. So that's why I feel like you have to have both, and you have to have a little bit more common sense of how the operation is, because sometimes bigger companies, the people that are coming up with these KPIs don't always have the most insight of how the operations are actually working. So, and sometimes they can be manipulated, if it's all number driven for bonuses or other things like that. So I wanted things that could capture, but could also be controlled too, because sometimes we would hold sales to the whole company, where it's good if the bookings are in here, but my salespeople aren't doing a great job. Is my CMM programmer really the one that should be penalized for that?
Yeah, that's solid. So you mentioned spindle utilization. So like, out of all the available time, how much of that are you making chips, right? And how do you capture that? Do you use some sort of machine monitoring solution to get your spindle utilization?
I probably use the least tech that anybody that's monitoring spindle utilization. I have one of my interns or night shift programmers on Monday record the times on the machine. There's a spreadsheet that plugs in with Power BI.
Got it.
So one thing that I'm really reluctant to do, and I'm probably way behind the industry on this, is none of our CNC machines are networked. we just do a lot of mission critical defense parts, and it was just really a lot easier with our CMMC protocols to just say it's not network driven, it can't be hacked, can't be modified, and the guys like it that way, honestly. So mine's super caveman-y, and it's a dang spreadsheet.
What I kind of like about that, Johnny, though, is it kind of proves that you don't have to have all the sweet tech in place to kind of start measuring your progress and tracking those KPIs. It can be as simple as kind of manually recording the data and inputting it. And I know you're integrating ProShop as well. I mean, is that kind of another way that you're kind of tracking and logging process data?
Yeah, so we started with ProShop, I think at the end of 2021. So we actually just finished our full AS9100 research, and our auditor, who audits a lot of other companies, he's like, I've never seen any other company audit use ProShop to the extent you guys are. So I think we're way past that part. So there's one module that we're still working on getting with it, which is the kind of the tool library. My guys just don't want to input the tools, so it's not a hill I'm ready to die on yet. But yes, we were able to see, our schedule just got smarter than a dang whiteboard is how they were doing it before. And so one person misses a piece of paper, you got a job that's late and nobody knows about it. So the traceability and stuff with ProShop is great, and also backed by great people too.
Outstanding.
Right on.
Now, Jen, timestamp this in case you guys want it removed, but Nick did use the word nerd, and I refuse to let him out-nerd my nerd. And I do want to get a question in for your children, Johnny. So the question is, when implementing automation, is it important to make sure they only have a 6-foot cord in case Bumblebee goes from an Autobot to a Decepticon, turns on you, and ultimately tries to chase you?
Well, mine's bolted to the ground, anchored into concrete.
Another important safety tip. Yep.
So yes. Yeah,
I feel like a Decepticon would know how to get rid of those bolts, but that's just from the movies I've watched.
Transformers, they're coming out of a dang vending machine, so that
Someone has to ask the tough questions, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a rifle right behind me, so that's my first step, is I'll just start pumping rounds through it.
Old Johnny comes back. This just turned into like a really exciting movie.
Yeah.
You totally did.
Yeah, it's like a really cheap production Transformer spin.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so we got a lot of your past. We got to kind of like where you're at right now, how you measure things, your level of automation. And then, as any business owner, you have to have a vision for the future. And so, nobody's getting an incredible OEE metric where they're at like 90+%. Their spindles are running all the time. Their programs are running faster than they should. And everything that comes out is perfect quality, right? So like, where are you at with what's next for you, and kind of like what's eating at you as a business owner? Like, I really wish we were better at this, and here's where I see my company in the next few years.
Well, so as you automate things, bottlenecks never disappear. They kind of just move. So one thing
I want to say before you answer, because I love what you just said. Yeah. All automation does is highlight the bottlenecks before and after whatever you automated. Yes. It's so good that you said that.
Yeah. So one thing we're working on is just being able to inspect more parts, more complex parts, because now we got better capabilities that can do more parts. So it's just like a floodgate into quality. The CMM definitely helped. So getting more people, more CMMs is probably in the near future. What's really cool is we went from just in 6 months. So when I was on Paul's ProShop, because asking for statistics and better things, and I did a terrible job. So I'm going to try not to do that same thing for you guys. But so we, at the beginning of this year even, and we're just getting way more innovative, exponentially each year. But this year, our trailing 12-month on-time delivery was only at 91% at the beginning of January. And I just, I had to get all these numbers updated for our AS9100 audit. That was last week. And at the end of September, we were at 96%. So we've increased our average of 12 months of 6%, that means you can't have a single bad month that drops below that. You just need to be hitting, pretty much every month with 97 or above to bring that average up. And also the part is, it doesn't seem like people are, burning themselves out and doing it. Things just feel less chaotic. And so that's what we tell people. We've had, hired a new programmer a couple months ago, and we're touring. He's like, man, no one looks like they're super stressed out. They're moving, they're busy, but no one looks like they hate their life, they're stressed. And that's one thing I took away from like trying to make them hit a certain spindle utilization, because the guys are they're so good at just being focused themselves, and I have a good crew that's like, they're going to do the best they can. If they have to spend a little bit more time programming it and letting the spindle not turn, but we only do it once instead of 2 or 3 times, that is fine by me. So I've stopped throwing spindle utilization down their throat because they do a great job. Now, if that's where on-time delivery and quality are. If those start slipping, I'll be like, okay, we need to work on that. But the better they do, the less I kind of get on them. So that's
that.
where I'm at. And moving forward, so we're lucky in the fact that we have a different family company that also owns all the real estate. So we
do the same thing.
Yeah, so we pay ourselves right, but we have enough room to pretty much increase our size by another 40 to 50%. Our machine shop is kind of running out of space, so our machine shop is about 9 to 10,000 of our 25,000 square feet we fit in. But it's all, what separates it is just a wall we put in to separate us from the tenant. So in the next couple of years, we have access to another 10 to 20,000 square feet if we want to expand into. And so I'm just trying to find the right way to bring in enough sales backlog to justify more machines in a bigger space, and timing that perfectly. Because as you know, in sales,
I love that.
Timing is crucial. So if I do it today, I'm like, oh, my guys are going to be working overtime and burning themselves out before I can fit another machine in here for another 2 years. But if I work on LTAs now and get something in place, and we maybe cut our teeth for 6 months while we're getting that other one wrapped up.
It is a bit of a leap of faith. At some point, you just can't guarantee the future, but like, you trust your process and make those investments and cross your fingers.
That's how our last purchase with UMC 750 it was. Didn't really need it. But Haas called me with a deal. Even Peter Bowen was like, that's the best one I've ever seen. You need to take that. And I swear that month closed out, and we just got flooded with 5-axis work that we'd never seen
Mike
before.
Payne just did. He bought some 5-axis mills when, the guy selling is Keith, our buddy Keith over at Titans CNC. He was like, for the work I see, it's probably more of a mill turn that you should get. He's like, yeah, I want a 5-axis mill. I want to get into that category. And now he's thinking about, okay, how do I buy my second and third one? Because I filled it up with work. So, sometimes you just take that leap of faith and trust your ability to build a brand and attract customers. And look, in 5-axis machining, there's a lot of opportunity right now, especially if you're doing aerospace and defense type work. So,
well, and even just doing 3+2, like 3-axis jobs and less setups. That's what I think gets overlooked a ton. Is
absolutely,
you don't have to be doing true 5-axis to have a 5-axis.
Oh, you're not getting blisks out of your UMC 750? Why did you buy it?
Yeah.
Right?
But that's what was an easy win, is like we took things that were 6 setup or 5 setups, people moving parts, and then, they just mess it up one time on that last op, and you've scrapped all of that. Where Peter taught me, the less a person can touch it, the better part's going to be.
Got to reduce that handling. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. So kind of as we wrap this up, Johnny, I got to say, you remind me more of Klaus than you do Gary. We told this story, and I think you would love it, but we told like a 4-episode series that I had ChatGPT help me create about this guy who's trying to automate for all the wrong reasons to be as cool as this other shop in his town. And, like not considering that it just moves the bottleneck to quality or the culture change and the change management that it's going to require. And it's so cool because throughout this episode, you've made so many of the same points that we made, me, Dave, and Eric, on our kind of like little creative series called The Automation Trap. So I highly recommend you check that out because you'll see yourself in that story.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of crazy. There are some things you said that was almost like verbatim out of the story. It was awesome. I had a question for you, Johnny, maybe kind of a bit of a wrap-up question, but I mean, you've managed a lot of change over the last few years, and is there any moves that you made that you wish you had made sooner in the process?
Good question.
Yes and no. I wish I probably would have got more into how operations was working. I really dove into the ProShop implementation. But by doing that, I saw because I was putting in so many parts and routings, I learned the operation process really well. Other than that, I think the timing has been just right, because you need to manage the cash flow to support that project. You need to have the right people, right tooling, work holdings, skill level, training, need to have those all. And so we spent a lot of that year, we weren't buying capital equipment. We were just throwing so much training at our guys. So upskilling them so that more people are able to run those machines. But, and I've really only been here for 5 years. So it's, in 10 to 15 years, you asked me this, I might have different questions because there might be something I learned about this year where I'm like, oh man, had I known about that. That's just what's cool about getting to network with so many people, go to other shops, Flying S, they're super innovative. Going to IMTS is being always able to see new tech and stuff. But I think I wouldn't change kind of the timing or how I did things. I think it would have had a way different impact. And the kind of things I had to cut my teeth on is what made the success of it too. So it's like you kind of remove that one little thing in the past and it drastically, has a butterfly effect.
I have to do this shameless plug here. So there's one thing that you may not know about, and it was designed specifically for your UMC 750, and that is the Hennig workflow automation system. It's a 40 pallet system to automate those machines. We're coming into production at the start of next year. Would love to show it to you. Would love to take you out and see it in action on the exact machines that you're using in your shop. So I don't even care if this is in the recording or not, but I just had to say it. You're a great dude. I think we'd have a blast hanging out. Yeah, we definitely want to show it to you.
So I'll never say no to turning down new technology, and this might be a good way for people. Is because I think some owners get so bent on like, hey, Nick's trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like, let's look at something. And sometimes it just triggers a completely different thought process. Or like, maybe it's not the part you want or are selling, but it gets me to think about, okay, we can do this. And that's why like salespeople, I'm like, I'll give you my time.
Yeah,
I want to see what's new, what's out there. It just triggers different parts of my brain to operate.
Yeah.
And because I'm not from manufacturing, like I'm not even close to being a subject matter expert or knowing everything. I mean, I still have so much to learn. The fact that people want to come and tell me what their capabilities, what they can and can't do, because sometimes it's not anything we can do. And I learned that, oh, wow, that would make this process so much simpler.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm used to people telling me to, kick rocks.
Yeah, so
it's the real reason we bring you on the podcast is to sell you an automation system, Johnny.
That's our tactic. 56 minutes later, we get into our real motive.
Yeah, you got me good. No, we used to have really bad gatekeepers at our company that would, anybody coming in here to pitch new tech, they're like, oh, we'll never need fifth axis for this. I'm like, oh, that's why you guys were stuck at that ceiling height.
Yeah.
So we're hitting back-to-back record highs too for revenue, which is awesome. And the fact we're doing most of it in-house, they'd get a fifth axis job, outsource it and pay, 85% of the job to the company and just have terrible margins. So
yeah. So refreshing to hear everything you're saying. I can't express that enough.
Such a good episode.
That's where I think being a younger individual that has no experience in manufacturing gives me kind of a different mindset. People that have been in for 30 years probably sit on that other side where they're like, it's worked out well. I've made a lot of money doing this. Why change it? Where I came in and we were not making much money, if anything, losing money. So I was like, we have to do things differently. You just have to. And I think that created a good foundation of like always change, always move. And I'm just young and have a ton of energy. So I think that's also
absolutely
strong advantage I have.
All right. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for joining the episode today. And great to hear your story and learn about some of the things that you and your team are working on at MSP. Of course, listeners who want to check out MSP is msp-manufacturing.com. Johnny, we always love to end these episodes off giving our listeners just a few action items or a few pieces of advice that they can use to inform their lights out journey. What would you say to folks who are looking to kind of start making those moves into automation on their shop floor?
Yeah, I think the big component is your mindset. So mentioned earlier, old SWAT motto: don't confuse good luck with good tactics. Really start your team to start looking outside the box, and then automation doesn't have to be a new purchase of a fifth axis machine. I think that's where the misconception is. People think it's a big CapEx purchase. You can start small, and I honestly would recommend get an easy win for your team. Buy a base plate, buy a couple vices, and those easy wins get people into kind of the thought process, and they're like, oh, it's not as hard as I thought. starts getting their brain to work differently. Because if you're not in automation or haven't done a lot of it, your guys that are running the parts might not understand it. They might have come from a place that's totally automated. I don't know. But if they can just see firsthand that like a small, vices and a rock plate, great start. And then when you have a pallet system, they already have like, oh, we're going to put the same ones so it's repeatable. And then you scale up by buying a cobot that loads the vices. So I'd start small with an easy win. If you're a project manager pitching it to an owner, they're probably going to buy off on something that's not a huge CapEx purchase, depending on the cash flow of the company. But I think it doesn't have to be this big, sexy project that you see on LinkedIn or on the internet. You can start small. You can just standardize every workstation so people aren't hunting like we talked about earlier. So I'd say start small, easy win, just gets the team fired up, and that snowballs through the rest of the process.
Awesome. That's so well articulated. And again, thank you, Johnny, for sharing your story today. That's a wrap on this episode of the Lights Out podcast. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Otherwise, we're going to turn the switch on this episode off. Thanks, guys.